Good.
Would you like to do roll call and establish quorum?
Yep. Denhart,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
McConnell, Wilson. Here. Carver.
Here. The Green County School Vision mission is promoting lifelong learners through real-world experience. Approval of agenda.
Do we approve the agenda?
Second.
Fisher moved and Wilson second to approve the agenda. Please call the vote.
Denhart,
Aye.
McConnell,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Open forum. Anybody who wants to speak to the board on something that's not on the agenda.
Same.
Anybody raise their hand? And goes there too, but I don't see anybody, so. Okay. Consent items, minutes, bills, financial reports, hiring, resignations. Got a couple coaches resigning, a couple soccer coaches and baseball coaches. Everybody reviewed all that stuff?
Yeah, one question, I guess, just for the meeting, I did ask Brenda today on the phone, is we are gonna go ahead, and I just wanted it to be known, we are continuing to work with that,
Forecast 5.
Forecast 5.
Correct.
And
Yep.
work on, and I think that's a great thing, and I'm really glad we're continuing
Yep.
with that, so. I would move we approve the consent items.
Second.
Moved by Steve Fisher, second by Mike Denhart to approve the consent items. Please call the vote.
Wilson.
Aye.
McConnell,
Aye.
Denhart,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Brings us to old business, voluntary retirement applications, resignations.
I think you get a sense I'm staring next to it now.
Did you look at that? That's great.
So my understanding is we're just under what we set for a limit to the incentives by adding the last applicant to that. Is that correct?
Right. He's thrown down just a little bit more lawyers for another total, yeah. Yeah, so there's just the one to approve tonight,
Yeah, we approved the other
previously, yeah.
The December
in
meeting.
the December
Yep.
meeting, and January was a deadline for application, and so we need to approve that last one tonight. So there's no motion to approve.
I'll move, we approve the final teacher here for early retirement.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Captain to accept the early retirement request from Teresa Green. Please call the vote.
McConnell.
Aye.
Denhart,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Discrimination and harassment based on sex prohibited, second reading. We had the first reading at our last meeting.
You just need second reading of the Title IX, again, discrimination harassment policy. You have federal guidelines and everything, but
And we don't have to read it aloud. We just have it here in front of us, correct?
correct.
We need to approve
Recommend to
that.
approve that.
Yep, recommend we approve.
Move, we approve the discrimination and harassment policy as in Series 100. Second.
Moved by Steve Fisher, second by John McConnell for approval of the Educational Philosophy Series 100 on discrimination and harassment based on sex prohibited. Please call the vote.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. So just an update on middle school.
And Nate Adams is still working through his stuff. Right now, they're in the process of removing asbestos from the gymnasium and the middle school proper itself, so that's going on. We just put out, it'll come out in the paper tomorrow, but bids for demo. So that'll be going out, and bids are due back the 11th of February. So then the board can make a decision on, you know, looking at the February board meeting, I would say, is when probably need to make a decision what you're gonna do with the middle school gym and middle school and everything. Because we'll have the bids back by then to, you know, that was one of the things that everybody wanted to see what the cost of demolition was.
So will we have Nate at our meeting to discuss things
Uh,
at the February meeting, you think?
Yeah, I can get him in the meeting, yes.
I did read the, I don't know whether it was city council or, so he was at city council meeting and he has approval of some of the tax credits for historical things. He has people lined up for those, so he's moving along with some of the financial aspects on his side. It sounded like $6 million project, is there
Yeah,
something
I'm not
like
sure
that
the cost.
for the total commitment as far as that goes. So just a matter of deciding what we decide to do. I think his request is basically that we pay for the demolition of the gym and then sell him the little school for $1.
Along with that, then what kind of, I mean, is this a documented sale, I would assume? And is there anything in that contract that assures his performance as to what his plans are, or?
Yes, to the fact it would have to be a documented sale and go through everything.
Assume that.
I mean, are we guaranteed that this is gonna be done?
That's my question.
That's what he's asking.
I know that. I mean,
Because if it's not done, it's still, regardless of whether we own the building, it's still, to me, it looks bad on the school if it doesn't get done. Especially if we tear down the gym.
I mean, again, when he spoke to us last time, I mean, he basically said he was taking the property.
Yeah. And I think that there's commitment by the city, it sounded like, from this last meeting, at least what I read about from Mike Palmer. And I think they're also maybe involving the Board of Supervisors in some of the financing as well. So it's kind of a multi-entity
I know, yeah.
project. I mean, I think it's, you know,
I'm like
great
Catherine.
concept. It's just a matter of,
I'm like Catherine, Noah. I mean, if a guy does do it and tear down that gym, then nothing's ever done with that. Holy moly. There's gonna be a lot of very, very mad people.
That's gonna be ugly.
Well, again, that's where, you know, I think we need to have him at the next meeting and allow him to address those questions.
Yeah, I think at the minimum, I'd like to see, you know, that he has, I mean, I doubt if he has signed any kind of commitment with contractors or anything yet, because he probably can't do that until he gets the property, right?
I think he's got a
he has a
contract with
I don't know whether there's any signatures or not.
Okay.
he's got a contract
mentioned
with
the contractor.
the contractor.
I mean, I think it's a, you know, extremely high likelihood that he's gonna get this project done. It sounds like, from what we're hearing and from all the, you know, other plans that he's making, but, you know, I just question how firm of a commitment or legal of a commitment we need, or the school system needs. Maybe we don't, I don't know, I'm just asking questions. So,
Well, I think we need some reassurance from the community that they're still on board with the 3-block project. Because this really is part of that. I mean, you know, it all is part of that.
so where are they on that?
Do you know what they're like committing towards this? Is like you said, tax stuff? Like what all are
I
they?
mean, Nate is lining up his historical
Right.
credits. It's kind of like what Chris Neal has done with
Mhm.
the 2 buildings that he's rehabbed
Right.
in town. And Nate's going along those same pathways to get those things lined up. I don't know whether the city, the last time I talked to Sid Jones, it was still kind of, well, we're just presenting the city council with this concept for them to make a commitment to this. And next we have to talk to the Board of Supervisors to try to see whether they want to be involved because of, you know, critical housing, some of those. So I don't know that there's anything written down anywhere yet for those, as far as my understanding goes. You may know more than I do.
No, I mean, there's just a lot of dominoes that need to fall.
And you wanted us to vote by when?
The goal, I mean, again, we'll have the bids back February 11th. Our board meeting then will be the 18th, I think is the board meeting. Typically, they'll hold a bid for, 30 to 60 days. Maybe you wait till the March meeting, but one of the next two meetings would be the goal to, I think, look
That
at.
would make you to make the decision on the demolition of the gym.
Correct. Because again, whether it's March or April, May, essentially the demolition of the gymnasium has to happen before any other part of the project can happen, which again, I know puts.
Well, do we just give it to the city for $1 and let them deal with all this? What's the difference?
They don't
City
want
wanna
to pay
go in
to
another building?
demolish it.
Well, I mean, because I'm kind of like you, there's a lot of what ifs. And the gym bothers me more than anything. It really does. And I agree with you, John. You can't afford to upkeep on it. But man, there are going to be a lot of people. That's one of the biggest things I've heard recently from the people about tearing that gym down. I really have.
My only, again, I think it's good to wait till next month, so he's here that he can address questions directly. I don't want to speculate too much and puts doubt somebody's.
The bottom line is, nobody's really liked the fact that we demolished a couple of other gymnasiums in the other communities either, but there really was no business model that could maintain it or anybody to pay for it.
I agree.
Communities couldn't pay for it. Scranton figured out a way to do it.
But we haven't even researched
But
that. Like, we haven't even looked into that. The city hasn't even looked into that.
I mean, what I'm saying, if there's all kinds of this historical stuff, is there something that we can do to keep the gym as far as, you'd know more than I would say, and what?
Doesn't mean it.
The gym doesn't, it's the building itself that has the historic.
Jim's just not historical.
Is there,
Well, and the infrastructure is not in place for the gym to maintain operation. You'd have to invest in additional infrastructure. And then you got the operating costs after that. And that's the problem. I mean, yeah, I really wish there was a way that building could survive, but it's just, it doesn't fit the plan. It doesn't fit the budget. It doesn't fit.
Oh, I'm not arguing on that. I mean,
I think we have to, what he's saying, and I hear it too, is that the community, we represent the community and we have to ask questions. That's just our job as.
Yeah.
No?
FEMA grants, do you know anything about FEMA grants? Sounds like I plead the fifth, I'm staying out of this. Yeah, somebody just had suggested that to me.
It doesn't meet any of their criteria either, just because you don't want it torn down. doesn't-
Right, no, I know.
Isn't all FEMA does is stock the inside of the building?
Mhm.
We kind of looked into that one at a time.
Yeah.
It what? I couldn't hear you.
You have to maintain the building and have the infrastructure, then they just supply whatever's inside of the building.
Okay,
Yeah,
So we still have the cost of making it self-sustainable.
you'd have to spend a lot of money on it, but that you'd never get back. It's sad, but it doesn't fit any way to keep it.
It sounds like the biggest argument here is that if he wants the middle school, he needs to have a contract that says, I'm taking it, I'm going to finish this project and not leave the city with a rundown building. And that sounds like what we're talking about here. But we need some sort of commitment, otherwise we're going the wrong direction. If he wants the building and in 2 years nothing's happened, then we got a rundown building. Now we're tearing down 2 buildings.
Yeah, I mean, if he, decides the plan won't work to do what he wants to do with it, what assurance is there I guess at that point, it's not our problem anymore because we've deeded it to him, but it's the county or city.
Except for $1 investment, you can walk away and let the building sit.
I know.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've been uneasy about throughout this process is It's not that I don't believe him, and it's not that I hope it is a project that works, but I don't know, it just seems,
Looks to me like a lot of work to ever make that into.
To me, he's got a lot invested in it already. Like I said, I think it'd be good to get him here next.
yeah,
next
we'll
month
talk to him when he's here.
And allow him
I've
to,
seen them, Ames has done at least 2 of those. with
the
their
buildings,
schools.
yeah.
Turned out amazing.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're neat over there.
Did you say, Steve, it was a proposed $6 million project on
I
that building?
thought I read somewhere in the
I don't
article, I don't quote me on that.
Well, we'll ask him.
See what-
Interesting,
That's where they got it.
Another thing that I just saw is that San Francisco is concerned because their tech workers are leaving the inner city because they can work remotely. And so they're worried about their local economy in the city that they've built, the coffee shops, the restaurants, their apartments. We're on the other end of that. We could have one of those persons from San Francisco rent a unit in this new building and work remotely. I mean, I've got a daughter-in-law who's working for a company in Minnesota, and she's working remotely now. I mean, our whole way of thinking about some of these things has changed. And we do have some really attractive things for people to move to rural America. Okay, we got some good things out here.
There's a ton of potential opportunity, you're right. And we need to continue to position ourselves out here in the hinterlands to provide those opportunities. But, I'm like Mike and, everybody here would like to see that building be used, but is there a practical way to do that? I think once people also see this gym here and see the improvements of it, I think that'll ease a lot of their concerns.
Oh, I agree with you there.
This gym
I
here
was,
turned out really nice.
I thought it was really nice too.
Yeah.
I mean, the wrestling room, everything was
Oh,
really
yeah.
nice.
I'm so
Yeah.
impressed. with
It's
it.
beautiful, but I know that in the last 2 weeks, we've still ran into issues with gym space. So, and whether that was just didn't manage right or what, but it's still an issue.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is an issue, yeah.
So,
Can you afford to?
no, and I know that,
Fix
but we,
that issue with, by spending millions of
Right.
dollars so that we can have practices when we.
It's just like a shop. It's never big enough, but can you afford it? Well,
Right, you're
I mean,
right.
it's no
you're
different.
right.
It's tough.
Okay,
The
moving on.
the last part of that, you're looking at 7 figures to tear down that whole building too.
No.
It ain't gonna come down for a couple $100,000.
Right.
That thing's concrete and all reinforced. That thing's gonna take a wrecking ball and some serious work to get it down. So
It's advantage to us to not have to do that.
advantage to you to not have to tear it down.
Yeah. I think you're
That's one of the reasons it's attractive to him is its structure is so good.
right. Right.
Okay. Ready to move on? COVID update.
Yeah, let's get to an easier topic.
Something with no controversy.
Okay. I skipped over that.
Just everything I would say is going well, from the time that, we closed down to temporary remote for a week and a half. Cases have been, I feel really controlled well. I think the mask mandate has been going well. Just FYI, the county did on Thursday of last week, they extended their county mandate through the month of March. So, again, I think things are going well from my perspective.
So do we need to do anything?
I don't think that anything needs to be
Can
done.
we discuss unfreezing the mask mandate and going to yellow? I just, how long are we gonna leave it at red? I know that we jumped it up at red at Thanksgiving time because we were spiking. And when I looked at the numbers yesterday, we were back down to about where we were in October. I just would like to maybe revisit that.
But are you breaking the county?
Yeah, to me, the county
Yes.
the county does it.
So the counties are all still, you have to wear a mask if you're closer than 6 feet. If you're far, and that's all I'm asking that we could maybe visit, is that especially at the high school and middle school level, do we need to have kids in masks when they're by themselves? I just would like to discuss it and at least look at it.
The only thing I don't agree with you there, Catherine, it makes it harder on the teachers, because then does it start flowing over to where, oh, we don't, I mean, it'd be tough to be a teacher right now, keep masks on, and if it's a mandate,
They're doing it anyways.
there's not a lot.
They're already after the kids all the time, so.
Agree. I mean, not everybody's willingly gonna do everything that
No.
they're.
No, ever, ever. I think we should look at it. I don't know why we need to keep it at red. I mean, we put it up at red because we had spiked, because we were out of control with the virus here in Green
What
County.
exactly are the parameters from the county? If you're within a public building? How is it stated, I guess?
See, to me, all of it is, I feel it's all open interpretation, but I think if you read it one way, you could say you're supposed to wear a mask all the time.
And yet, when I talked to Becky Wolf a month ago, I said, you know, in the hospital, which is a public building, do you require people to wear masks when they're sitting by themselves in their office? She said, no.
Well, and again, I think that's, again, what we decided here.
And I agree, it's all up to kind of
I guess
interpretation.
my interpretation of the counties is you wear a mask if you're in any kind of building where the public's present, because you're not gonna be secluded by yourself. I mean,
But if you're secluded, then you should be able to.
I guess if you're in an office somewhere in one of those buildings, you're secluded, you should be able to have your mask off.
And that's-
when you're out exposed to the public and exposing yourself to the public, then you're supposed to have a mask on.
And that's where we're at right now, isn't it? That we are with staff and
Staff can
teachers.
still have their mask off if they're
It's
secluded.
staff's in the room by
Just
themselves.
reviewing,
Yeah.
to make sure I understand exactly where we are, so.
Yeah. I
Well,
guess my thought is, I know that when I talk to Becky, she says it doesn't make sense to bounce back and forth when you're better. Leave it in place until we're much further down the line. We know we're not gonna bounce back and forth.
I think we can
I mean, I
review it every month and just see
Yeah.
where we're at, yeah.
I'm not asking for not having a mandate. I want kids to wear them. If they're sitting right next to each other at a desk, wear them, fine. But I'm just saying, when a kid is on the educational stairway by themselves, why do they need to wear a mask? We let teachers take a break, but we're not gonna let a kid take a break?
I agree, Catherine, but I agree with Mike too. I think once you start cutting them loose, it's gonna be hard to,
Get their freedoms back. Yep, I agree.
and I sympathize with both positions. And
On the wellness committee, talking to the teachers, they were very happy with how kids are behaving with their masks. And yes, there's an exception, but in general, like the elementary kids, they pretty much look at the teachers there for direction. And they, high schoolers pretty much taking a mature look at it and deciding one way or the other. Middle school, maybe a few more challenges. And that's just typical for middle school age individuals. I guess was my interpretation of
I would,
what was brought up there.
yeah, I agree. I would say probably the next step that I would like to consider is allowing, because I've talked to several teachers who express that it's really hard to lecture with a mask on. And I'm curious if we ought to, and I'm not saying now, but I think that should be one of the next steps we look at, is if they can set up their room so that, kids are at a distance that's safe. And I think a lot of teachers can do that, especially if you've got a small class with, like in the high school, some of those classes are only, 10 kids. But you can set all the kids, 12, 15 feet away easily, then allow the teacher to remove their mask. So that's the thing I'm hearing is it's hard to, I know it's hard for me to understand people when they got masks on.
Sure.
And for effective instruction, I just wonder if that's one of the next steps we have to look at.
And I do agree with that, Steve. It's just like me trying to hear you, Doc. It would be challenging. Being a teacher unless you're screaming.
Plus, they're trying to lecture online a lot of times, and
Yeah.
along with, the kids in the room, they've got kids on mics, and sometimes that's a challenge anyway. And I'm just saying, I think that should be, in my opinion, one of the next things that we consider. And
Are the teachers wearing the mics all the time now that they have, when we have something?
I think majority of them are wearing their mics, yeah.
Yeah, so that may help a little bit too. I think the other thing is, as we move on with vaccination and get more people vaccinated, we're gonna see fewer cases, then we can start to think we're safer if we start to back away from some of these social distancings, but, it sounds to me like all the gurus in public health are saying we're in for another 2 or 3 months of social distancing and masks at least, and maybe longer than that. So at this point, we've discussed it, or we're staying the same? Everybody's in agreement with that?
I have nothing to recommend at this time.
Reports and correspondence. Sam, construction update.
It's gotta be a better topic than,
Amen.
Well, a little less controversial.
less controversial. They have turned over everything to us, so the choir actually practices in the auditorium now.
Oh, wow.
Which allows them better acoustics, and still be socially distanced in the seating, because it seats so many. So that's working real well. I talked to Steve, the superintendent, and he said it's working real well. Them coordinating with them, there's still work getting done in there, but it's getting coordinated. We are going to be hosting the State Jazz Choir Festival on February 8th in the auditorium. So that's pretty exciting. But it'll be kind of the first time a lot of public can maybe get in there and peek for whatever they get to do.
And somewhat sidelight that, on that related to the last topic, February 6th, I believe is when the governor is revisiting her initial guidelines.
Yep.
About attendance and activities and everything, so.
So the sound, they practice, both Wes and Dave have set aside a time each day that they go in and work on practicing how the sound system works and how the video system works, and trying to figure out how the mics hook up so they can do the Jazz Choir Festival. They're pretty much ready for the Jazz Choir Festival. They know how all that's gonna do. They can tie everyone's mics in and put it over the sound system, so that should turn out real well. Otherwise, throughout the building, they got punch list items. I think when I reported last month, I didn't say how many they had, but they had like 2,200 punch list items in the high school. I think they're down to 300 or something like that. But you can have 10 in a room, and they can all be little spots, that have to be touched up that take 2 seconds. So the number can get way huge. Sounds like they did trouble. No, there's just a lot of little things they got to touch up. The painters are working at night, but only when we allow, when there's no one in the building now. We changed their schedule so that if there's the public going to be in there for ball games and stuff, we don't want the painters in there. So that's slowed down the progress on the punch list a little bit. But it's coming along pretty good. I haven't seen, if you've been in there lately, you see they got the wood up on all the walls in the commons. That turned out real nice. There's a little piece of metal trim that goes around the very edge of it that they finished making today. So it should be going up here shortly. It should be up before that festival. So our goal is to have the whole commons looking great by the time the festival comes. So everything, all the punch list in the commons will be done. They're getting pretty close on that. So otherwise, high school, we're going to learn some things about where we need to place snow fence, I think. That it definitely drifts pretty good out front. It's kind of weird to look at. I mean, it's 10 feet from the building and then a huge drift, so snow does what it does, and then that's where you figure out to put a fence. So if that's our biggest problem, I think we turned out pretty good. And the other problem they're having out there is we can't put any ice melt on it until next year. So we're having some ice. It makes it a little more work on the custodians to really kind of make sure that when there's any chance to get any of that ice off, get it off. Because we end up putting sand on it, but that, if we get that ice melt on there, it would void our warranties on that concrete. So we don't want to do that. So, out here, same thing, they're just down the punch list items out here. And they're clicking those off pretty well. The gym, it has a couple of small issues we gotta deal with. The bleachers area, we gotta put something on the ends of it. They mismeasured the space when they built the walls, so we're working on a fix for that. The ram in the middle of the floor has to get repainted. Some of the paint is flaking, so that they're gonna get that done. But otherwise, everything's working pretty well. The wrestling room is in full use now. That turned out real nice. I'm just pleased as heck with how we ended up using the square footage in this building well. This turned out nice.
Yeah.
The wrestling room, there's places that die to have a wrestling room that big and nice. Even if it is on the junior high, we couldn't have built that space out there. Yeah, that much square footage, we didn't have that kind of money. So it turned out to be a great, it would have just sat there empty and we would have had half the size room out there that we have here if we had built it. So I think it turned out real well. So, any questions for me?
So the stuff in the hallway, is that part of the punch list?
Yeah. It's mostly the stuff they're using to finish the punch list.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And they're gaining. I know they finally got your wood trim up that you didn't. So they're making progress. But it's hard to get subs back to do one or two things. That's just the eternal problem with the punch list. And until those subs get motivated enough to actually need their attention that we're holding, it makes it just that much more difficult. They talked to us about reducing their retention, and I visited with them and said, we're willing to do that when you finish punch lists on pieces of building. If you finish a piece of the high school that we can identify, we'll give you the retention for that piece. And they haven't finished any, so they know that. They know we're still willing to do that. But it still hasn't gotten some of those subs to move. So. Their glass sub out of the high school is their biggest problem. And we have some mechanical issues out here that we're working on. So those are our two biggest delays. But everything's working pretty well, and I don't think we're having any problem coordinating with the school that I know of. So.
I wanted to comment last week, I can't remember what day it was, I stopped in here to just see how things were going. And I wanted to see the school while it was operating. And of course, I've been in this school a lot over the years because Patty's taught here for many years. And I'm just really impressed with how this building turned out. And everyone that I spoke with, I stopped in the library and saw several teachers and stopped in the office here. And who else did I see? But everybody was just extremely pleased. And I've told several people since then, I'm almost as tickled about the changes of this building as I am of the new building. I mean, the new building's magnificent, but this building seems like it's a different building now.
I'm more tickled with this building actually than that, just because this building turned out fantastic.
I think
for the little bit we spent really in making this building.
Well, the other part is
there's a nice middle school. This is a nice middle school.
Talk about the teaching environment that we just took them out of in the former middle school.
Yes.
How tight they were there to here.
They got nice sized classrooms. They're light and bright with new finishes and air conditioning. This is a great space. This just turned out in the gym. Now they have their own gym. That's one less problem. Having the wrestling room here actually saves us transportation because we don't have to transport the junior high kids to wrestling practice that we would have to if we built it out there. So just little things.
FFA had the regional competition.
Yeah, last
Last
Wednesday,
week.
they hosted districts, went well.
Good.
So, yeah, Marilyn Harris complimented her on the job she did with that.
I have got some questions. Got an email from a teacher about the FCS room,
Which one? There's two
consumer science here.
here.
Yeah,
Originally, it wasn't even planned as an FCS room.
okay.
We were gonna use,
It was gonna be a shop.
like a shop area, so we're,
So she wasn't gonna have a room?
again, we're gonna potentially bus out the high school.
That was the original concept, was to bus the FCS out
We
there
bus some kids.
instead of busing the shop kids out there. So,
I'm concerned because to me, that seems like a career path class that we've talked about having where you could go from taking that class to bakery to Ram Restaurant to the culinary school. And she doesn't have a classroom. I don't,
It's being finished right now.
and the school's doing the work, the contractor's done.
and when did you think that would be done?
She'd requested the 25th, I think, so I'd say the next 2 weeks it'll be.
The classroom will be done.
Correct.
Okay, because she was told the third trimester would be the soonest it would be done.
She talked about that, but then she visited with us more.
Okay, good. So it's gonna be done. Because that would be really hard as a teacher not
Well,
to have a
all it
classroom.
needed, and Adam's crew putting in the cabinets
Cabinets.
that we took out of it.
Because you're not putting carpet in that classroom.
No.
Which makes sense.
No,
So maybe do some tile.
we got it, it's clean now, so they could use that, or they could put tile or something. Yeah, original concept was that was a shop, so it was set up, we had to go in and change some plumbing in there, and we changed the electrical in there, so. That's what and then they had the ability to move the cabinets, so we didn't have to pay the contractor to do it. But it's gonna be a real nice FCS room.
Good, cool. And then I want to revisit the lights in the south parking lot. Is there money that we can, at the high school, the new high school?
Yeah,
We have that on the list, but there's nothing to be done until.
Till it thaws, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's,
And we figured out a way to, we've talked to them and they've given us an idea on how to do it.
Because somebody had mentioned even the school foundation maybe would have money that
I think
you found something that you could.
I think we got a way to do it, and so we'll probably be addressing that in the spring.
Awesome. That's something I can tell people when they say it's dark.
Yeah, and we got it figured out, we'll do step one and see if it's enough light, and it might be take step two.
Because it's dark, even when I come pulling in to go to a basketball game,
It
just to be able to
is.
see when you're coming into the lot is,
And most of what we can do will be on the lot, we're not gonna be really able to extend it
Right.
out to Grimmel out there.
right.
But we could get the lot lit up a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And then I have one more question. We still don't have a flag at our brand new high school gym. Is that something that is gonna happen soon? Because it's kind of odd not having a real flag to stand when you're, singing the national anthem.
So are you talking inside?
it's a,
Right.
Oh, okay.
I think Mr. Gordon has been bringing in
He
a
brings
little
in the, he
flagpole.
brings in the flagpole, I've seen him.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Sam, what, in your experience, being in this business for many, many years, just relate real quickly, I guess, for the board and for the people listening, your experience working with both OPN and Henkel. Has it been generally what you expected and
I'd say, with OPN, yeah, I'd say it was what we expected. They've done a nice job.
yeah,
I think one of their consultants wasn't the greatest, and that created some problems that we've had to deal with, but we fixed those. And they know that, and they've stepped forward about that. So, but Henkel, that turned out awesome. I mean, they stepped forward, they did a real nice job of managing the project, coordinating the project, making sure they supervised it properly.
good.
And anytime I've asked, they jump. So
That's good.
and they've been really good that if they have a question, they come looking for me before they make a decision on their own.
Good.
So that's been good because we've prevented some things that wouldn't have been the way we wanted them. But yeah, it's been a great experience.
Good.
And I was glad when they got this one. You know, they were low bid on this too, but it was nice having the same crew doing both, so that it made it easier for my coordination.
Right.
But it also, they were bought into the whole district then. Because anything that they did that slowed down the progress here made it harder to occupy it, and they knew all that. So having all of that tied together has really worked.
Good. Well, thank you.
And the other part of it is, Sam, you've been a godsend
Yeah.
for us as far as our expense goes and what you've done to,
Yeah.
I mean, this is your baby and you've treated it very well. So thank you.
You're welcome. I treated it as my baby.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, that
Is.
I know every little bit of it, so. And,
Well, thank you.
Until we can recognize you more publicly.
that's okay. I don't.
Yes, you do. Board committee reports. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Sam.
If you got more, just call me.
I will.
One thing that I would like to, it's not a board committee report, but got an email from Phil Jennery, who is the legislative person for IASB. He's got a Zoom session set up Friday at 3:00. Since you're kind of IASB legislative person, would you be willing to join me in that? Talking to Representative Phil Thompson about vouchers. Does that work for you?
So I would join you like.
Yeah, just come here. So if you put that on your
Friday at
on your calendar, Friday at 3:00.
Friday at 3. Okay.
I don't know if everybody's paid attention to that at all.
Del Jennery was the superintendent of my high school at East Green when I was in high school, and Phil is his grandson, I think.
Oh.
And then Del was at West Liberty and employed my wife as a teacher while I was in medical school. So the Jennery family and the Carver family go way back.
The governor press conference probably 3 or 4 weeks ago was really pushing, districts to get students back in person. Again, it doesn't really affect us, but from there, kind of some of the spin-off of conversations has been, whether provide families the opportunity to choose to come back to school, and whether that even turns into a voucher that says, school A, if you're not in session, I'm gonna take my money maybe and go to school B, that allows me to be in session. So that's gonna kind of start up the whole voucher conversation, school to school, and, does money follow a kid to a private school, or, should they get funding and everything? So, thank you.
Wellness committee met here a week ago. Kind of had a really good discussion, interesting. I think in general, the mood and spirits of people is pretty good as far as teachers go. They kind of settled into the reality of where we're at and seem to be doing pretty well. The one thing that kind of just jumped out that nobody really thought about is in spite of being here and working with all these people around them, the teachers are lonely because they can't socialize with each other. They, other than maybe 1 or 2 persons in their grade level so some of the contacts left them almost feeling isolated. So it's just kind of a thing that happens. We talked about trying to make sure that they get back to their critical friends and some of those associations. We also talked about trying to get some physical activity lined up. Mr. Thompson was going to look into using the loo and give some after-school opportunities for teachers to use at the elementary. The loo is the system that has the electronics and stuff for grade school, and there's a lot of things that he can use. They could do Zumba, they could do a variety of things using that. So Anything else?
They've all been very appreciative of the Monday early dismissal in order to be able to connect with remote learners and do that. I think that's about it.
Any other board committee reports? Administrators reports?
Mr. Johnson?
Good evening, everyone. Just was sitting here thinking as you're talking about the COVID stuff. Right now, if we were doing the board report, I'd be talking to you about the jingle read that we would have had in December, and then our family fun night that would be coming up at the end of January. So some of those things that we just are not getting to do because of this that we normally would be doing with our family, some of those good family outreach things that we've had in the past. So, like we're ready to get done with this so we can start to do those things because, coming in March, we'll miss muffins and math as well. So, just some of those things are those little things that we forget about that happen and everything. And as Steve and Mr. Christensen said, that the teachers are missing each other, but they're doing a great job. I want to commend them and all of the other staff for everything that they've done to make it seem like a normal school year for the kids. I think if you come into the elementary, for the most part, our kids really are not experiencing anything different than they would in a normal year because the teachers are doing such a great job of putting those things out for the kids. So it's kind of really a slow time of year. I know Mrs. Neal and Mrs. Heinold, they'll be talking to you about testing here later. That's our big push right now is testing at elementary. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be certainly happy to answer those.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders?
Good evening, everyone. Coming to you from my house here tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to do that. Lots going on, and I really like what Scott said about our teachers just doing a fabulous job with some really tough stuff. And I know you've all talked about those circumstances as well. And I appreciate the recognition of how difficult their jobs are right now. The Mondays have been great. I think it really gives them a chance to connect with some of our remote learners, and it gives them honestly a little break to be able to focus on that as opposed to trying to multitask in some of the rooms throughout the school day. So thank you for that. I did want to point out or recognize, I guess I should say, a few people. As you probably know, we have been providing interventions in the reading and math area for several years. That requires, assessment of our students and measurement on a regular basis. Some of that is state-driven, some of that is internal. We have added recently behavior as an area that we are providing interventions on, and we call it a RAM Success Program at the middle school. And I want to compliment our behavior team, which is headed by Karen Shannon, supported by Brenda Unken, Deb Marquardt, Dawn Young-Webb in our art room, Heather Mankin, Matt Paulson. They are doing a wonderful job of setting that up and meeting. They meet during our what we call our RAM period, which is daily. It's like 2 20-minute blocks of time every day at each grade level, where kids can receive extra help in math, extra help in reading, and now extra help in behavior. And they're meeting with basically 4 kids each of those 2 sessions, so 8 kids a day. And those meetings, those students are identified because our teachers are communicating with these folks, because we've noticed that they're not being successful in certain aspects of their school day. So they're now getting that help. But I want to make sure that those folks get the credit they deserve for setting that program up and then getting it started. And it's going to be a growing thing, and I'm sure it will evolve like our other interventions have. But thanks to them for that. Any questions for me this evening? Nice to have you in our building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Phillips?
I'm here. I'm using my phone. Is it coming through? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Several thank yous. We hosted district FFA contest last week. So a big thank you to Raylan Harris and everyone that was involved in that. That's a monumental task, having all those folks. So thank you to her. Thank you to Shonda Moss and Christine and Adam and everyone else that was involved with snow removal. We had sort of a huge glacier outside the main office doors there. If you haven't seen it, it was you almost need DOT equipment to remove that. So thank you for putting salt, or not salt, we can't use salt, but putting sand down and getting the place ready for entry for students and staff. Ditto with Sean and Scott with the Mondays. I know that's been a huge help for our staff working with remote learners. Really appreciate that time. Just starting with some interviews. We've done some guidance stuff and finishing up on that. We have FCS that we need to get involved in, and probably some other ones that are upcoming. So starting to work on interviews with replacement. So that's about all that I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Sandberg?
Thanks.
Hi. As special ed always keeps me a little busy, but right now, this time of year, I'm starting to work on some other projects as well. We're making some shifts with our teacher leadership, and the state's asked that we have also included in that an instructional framework. So the coaches and I are doing some work on that, trying to identify and use pieces that we already have in place to build something that'll fit that, as well as working on these teacher leadership positions. It's time when we start working on the state assessment preparation. So Emily Gannon and I have been doing some prep work, getting things ready for that. And I was just notified by the Department of Education earlier this week that we'll be getting a monitoring visit on our dynamic learning map assessment, which is an assessment that we do with special ed kids that have significant cognitive disabilities and take an alternate assessment. So Jennifer Den will be virtually visiting our system to see how that goes, and I'll be learning more about what that visit will look like next week, and then working with the teachers that do that DLM in order to get things ready for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Mrs. Neal?
Okay. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So like Scott said, we are doing a lot of assessing. January is our big assessment month. For K-8, we are doing our FAST state required test in reading. And then we're going to take all that data from those tests in the next couple of weeks and analyze it on our data day that's coming up on February 1st, and rearrange our intervention groups and retarget what we're doing. So that's a big thing coming up. The teachers are working extra hard right now. I believe that the kids are starting to spark from our big COVID break that we had. So things are starting to come together. And like I said, the teachers are working extra hard. So if you see a teacher, thank them for all their hard work. And also the jingle that we do, Doug Reeder and I are meeting again tomorrow to do the radio jingle, Greene County. I'd sing it, that catchy tune. So we've been doing some real world stuff and going around to try to even it out with all the buildings on what we're doing. So if you ever remember hearing those, thanks to Doug for that. So anyway, you have any questions for me? We're just testing.
Thank you, Dr. Test.
Mrs. High Note?
I'm gonna sing the same song as Julie with testing, and that's we'll be doing a lot of the same things that Reading's doing, just using that data to help us redo our interventions, and just trying to track down our remote learners and make sure that we can get them tested as well, and reaching out to them. That's another thing that we're working on. So you guys have questions for me?
What percentage of remote learners do you have to reach out to?
Well, we
Kind of numbers.
so at the middle school, that's the teachers at the elementary are really the ones that are reaching out to their remote learners. But at the middle school, there's about, I don't have an exact number, but 10 to 12 a grade around there.
I just wanted a general idea.
Yeah, a general idea, about 10 a grade, 10 to 12 a grade.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Gordon? I'm sure he's going to be done with basketball practice. Let's go on to.
Go back to Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, Mr. Snowgren or Mr. DeMoss, Mr. Stouffer?
I'll go ahead and go. Yes, it snowed. I've had to deal with that a few times. Just the custodians covering the numerous activities that are happening here in January. Thanks to them. We got the administration building moved. I've been working on the FCS room, moved some cabinets and stuff, and just putting out some daily fires and dealing with some asbestos crew problems, or not problems, but things that they need shut off and whatnot. So all that's going on with our department, I guess.
Thank you. Mr. Gersma?
Hi. So yeah, the boardroom project, you're sitting in it. And thank you to Adam very, very much. He did the majority of the work. He hung the TVs. He taught me that he's better at cutting holes in ceiling tiles than I am with the speakers. And I think it turned out pretty well. So big thank you to him for all his help with that. You'll notice the microphones hanging from the ceiling. Those are catching your sound. And this room also doubles as a teletherapy room as well. So we'll have students come in here for that. And we're going to work with Sue, I believe, next week, Monday, on getting that prepared. So that one's checked off, waiting for furniture, but I think that's coming pretty quick here too. Still working on cleaning and moving the old office from the data center at the Early Learning Center. Realized I don't like moving. I don't know many people that do, but if you do, come help. No, just kidding. I'm trying to take a box a day at least. We've got a few more to go. So that's a work in progress, but appreciate the Early Learning Center for their flexibility as far as giving us a little bit extra time to get that stuff moved over. So also last week we used the auditorium with the Jostens rep. He came in and presented to the high school seniors and did a good job. He blasted Sweet Caroline. And I tell you what, that's an experience in there with the sound and everything. So it's going to be really nice. I'm really looking forward to the musical when that comes. So any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Gordon, are you on?
Still a practice.
I'd say the biggest thing that got a report, he and I went to a conference meeting today over at in Ames and had a lively discussion, which is good. When it was all said and done, the conference voted 7-0 to let Perry into the conference. So we're going through the process. I think that we'll be in the conference next year. So.
What was the lively discussion about?
What was that?
What was the lively discussion?
Oh, just conversation about, some people have weren't sure that Perry had, kids at all levels in order to be able to compete against them. And, it's just some of those things. And, everybody's got, there was concerned if they would come in, then that opens a spot in the Raccoon River Conference, and then they potentially invite somebody else from our conference to go join the Raccoon River, and then fruit basket upset, so it's, but excited about that because again, they're obviously a natural rivalry for us, and, be able to, close proximity and everything to plan.
So are there schools that potentially would leave to go to the Raccoon?
Again, everybody at the meeting said no.
Yeah.
But the point I made to them, I said, over the last 14 years, I've been at these meetings, and people say, we're not going anywhere, and then 2 months later,
They're going somewhere.
they're going somewhere. I mean, so. But, yeah, nobody said that they're going anywhere.
Well, distance is great. Like you said, a natural rivalry, so.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. That it for reports and correspondence, or we have some of those?
No, that's it.
New business. 2021 soccer coaching contract up first. Mr. Black. Varsity boys and assistant boys. Those are 6 and 4 units. What the salary's based on.
I'd move we approve the soccer coaches contracts.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Catherine to approve the soccer coaching contracts for Bailey and Chad Black.
It's all 4. Like there's 4 people.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, yep, I'm sorry, I didn't read that correctly, so we're talking about the girls too, yep. You meant all 4. My error. Please call the vote.
McConnell.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Fisher. Carver.
Aye. Turn it over to see the baseball and softball. We still have some holes there, it looks like. We have a head and assistant, but we need 3 other level baseball coaches, and we have a head in middle school, 9th grade softball, and still need an assistant varsity and a couple middle school coaches. Do we look, maybe those get filled, or will we get them filled?
Todd's continuing to try to look for people to fill those, yeah.
I move that we approve the contracts for the baseball and softball season for 2021.
Second.
Motion made by Catherine, seconded by Mike, for approval of the baseball softball 2021 contracts. Please call the vote.
Fisher.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. I'm not sure I understand the numbers on this, but SBRC requests for administrative costs
So these are
to be allowed through,
yeah, these are consortium schools that we send kids to. And the only way they can charge us administrative costs, which, I mean, they have to, but the only way we can,
have the authority to pay it.
yeah, you have to request it. It's goofy, I know it is, but yeah.
So it's a special request for spending authority to be able to pay these, correct?
Mhm.
So do we have to make a motion for each one of these schools?
I think you can combine them.
So we just move to approve the SBRC request for administration costs for Grant Wood and Woodward Academy.
Yep.
Motion made by Catherine,
Second.
seconded by Mike. Give him credit here.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Please call the vote.
McConnell.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Carver.
Okay, so we got a bunch of policies, some of which have to be approved today or something like that. Is
Yeah,
that right?
correct.
Because of state laws.
Yeah, new legislation was passed before, and by the time they got the rules and regulations, and everything done, they've just recently released this. But it's related to seclusion restraint of students. You know, there's gotta be training that's required for if you're gonna restrain a student. If you're gonna seclude a student, the room has gotta be of a certain size, and there's certain regulations. You've gotta notify parents, within an hour, or by the end of or at the end of the day, whatever is quicker. Need to have follow-up meetings. So a lot of policies, everybody in the state essentially is going through this exact same thing.
So the training part, I mean, we can train the entire staff?
Correct.
Because
And
potentially anybody might have to physically restrain somebody if you have a student in your class that goes wacko that day.
and not everybody is trained in the holds and everything, but we have had to, the AEA has a PD online, professional development, that everybody has taken that training online. But that's the training that they need to take.
Is the writing of these policies kind of boilerplate that's been given?
ISB does it.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about that.
No.
Can we approve them all at once?
Yes.
Or are we doing a reading?
We need to, basically everything, today's the date that everything's gotta be, go into force for.
So we're gonna recommend a waive, I see, the
Yes.
second reading, okay,
And approve.
and approve. I'll move that we waive the second reading on all of these policies and that we approve them.
Second.
Motion by Steve Fisher, second by Catherine to approve the revised policies 503.5, 503.6, 503.68, 6B, 6C, and 6D. Please call the vote.
Denhart.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. And then we have board policy review 603.1 to 603.12. I've forgotten what.
The only one that need to make some changes on is 603.1. Have been several requirements by the State Board of Education that we need to have in our policy. Computer science needs to be offered at least one grade level in the elementary, at least one grade level in the middle school. Financial literacy, again, is something that we've had but is required. And then computer science at the high school level as well.
So that's the technology education covers that. Is that?
Yes, yeah.
Is this the second time we're doing it, or is this the first? We
I
need
think
to
this
approve,
is-
we need to approve all board policies. by
This is
today.
just,
We have
yeah,
to
we just
review
have to
board
review.
policies every so many years. So
Right.
This is one of those ones that's scheduled for this meeting, correct?
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
I'd move that we change board policy 603.1 to the suggested revisions per IASB and approve.
And approve the review of the rest of them.
Right. Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the board policy 603.1 to 603.12 with the changes to include the new curriculum. Please follow vote.
Wilson.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Okay, fundraiser requests. Three of them here.
3 fundraising requests, 7th grade social studies. Doing a fundraiser for water project, and then 2 from National Honor Society, daffodil sales and bake sale.
I'll move to approve the fundraiser requests as listed.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Fisher and Wilson for the fundraising requests. Please call the vote.
McConnell.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Need to sign all these. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. School permit request, less than 1 mile. You all read that?
Is there any, I don't know this young man, is there a recommendation on that?
I'd recommend it be approved. In wrestling out here at this building, so.
Wrestling and football. He is a very good, responsible young man. He actually has sheep project with me at my place. And good kid, good family, but both parents work, wouldn't be able to transport him. And so.
I move that we approve the school permit for Jackson Turner.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the school permit request from Jackson Turner. Please call the vote.
Fisher.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Denhart.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Carver.
Aye. Okay, superintendent's report.
As the principal said, we're in the process right now, working on filling vacancies. We have advertised internally, which kind of what we need to do, and some people have applied for that, and we're doing interviews internally, so then we'll be advertising outside as well. Again, want to thank Adam and all the custodians, everybody for helping move. We did move into here over break, and want to thank the secretaries, Brenda and Lauren, Denise, and everything for all the work that they've done helping design. We got some more work to do. With that said, the Early Learning Center basically has taken over that building. And as of January 1st, they're responsible for snow removal. We're still, we do the west side, across the north and down, and kind of go through the parking lot a little bit because we still pick up kids, but they take care of the other snow removal. And then basically utilities and maintenance and all costs of that now are their responsibility. Again, we still own the building and everything, but we don't charge them. We won't charge them rent moving forward, but they're very responsible for the building. So just wanted to share that. Vaccinations, you were kind of talking about that before, in the process right now, working with public health. I've got a form out to our staff. I think that, I don't know a timeline, but hopefully the next 2 to 3 weeks, they'll look at vaccinations. They will be coming out, they'll be coming on site to do ours. So like I said, I've put a form out to staff for them to sign up, anybody who's interested. Indication I got from them was that they're maybe limited is the wrong term, but they didn't get the supply that they thought that they were going to get. So I think they're going to prioritize, maybe early childhood and the lower levels and some of those. So, they're looking at, parents that work and everything, trying to eliminate the need for, having to shut down in those areas, and have parents stay home. So we'll be doing some vaccinations. Again, prepping for next year, looking at, starting conversations about budget and insurance. We are going to have Forecast 5, I believe, for work session in February. We'll have them, but like I said, we're starting kind of talking about insurance. Then the other big thing, I don't know if you've paid attention, federal funds, kind of second round for COVID relief have come out. We're getting a significant amount of funds here. $796,000 is what we'll be getting to spend over the next 27 months. Again, it's pretty much targeted on COVID relief. We need to talk more about that, but summer school the next couple summers will be something that definitely look at targeting. Probably mental health, some of those things that we're doing. Air quality is a big thing that we can use it to improve. And one thing that we'll be looking at, there's a couple heating and cooling units that we did not replace here on the first go around that I think we will look at probably replacing.
Using that
funding to replace those. Because if, improving the air quality is something that you can do, because again, they're looking at future pandemics or whatever, hopefully we don't ever have that, but how can you have your building in such, better shape to deal with that. So those are some things that we're looking at.
You use any of it for the clever boards? Is that part of instruction or?
I
Don't stretch it and get in trouble like the other.
Correct. And we've had a lot of conversations with even other schools and some of our meetings that, you know, they're asking the state, and depending on how you ask the question, is, you know, what answer you get.
We had talked about that one time, I think you brought it up about a program so that teachers didn't have to do all this online learning, that you would have a program. Do you remember, I think it was you, Steve, that, is that something you could use money for?
Potentially moving forward, I'd have to look at that.
Just to take the stress off some of our teachers, it would be nice
That'd
to.
be depending on if we offer online.
Yeah,
curriculum
correct,
or
right.
To me,
instruction next year.
Yeah, to me, going back to your previous thing, you know, once we get vaccinations in full force and everything, you know, I don't know that I necessarily see next year. You know, would have to be serious health condition before, and I think that will be statewide. Again, just with the governor's stance that, you know, kids need to be in school, I think they'll take a very limited view of who would be eligible for some kind of remote learning.
Yes. See, Iowa City School Systems is going to look into or is recommending an online curriculum for their students to be going in the future. But then I would expect them to probably do, I mean, they were very reluctant to have any kind of face-to-face instruction. I mean, as far as a school system to begin with. Yeah. I just think that for the social, emotional development of children, we need to have them in our schools. They need to be in a school somewhere.
And that's been a lot of conversation recently, is that kids aren't necessarily falling behind academically. I mean, that's not the number one concern. The number one concern is they're falling behind socially, emotionally, and those.
This funding that the feds are putting out, is that a one-time thing, or is it divvied out over 27 months, or?
We've got 27 months to spend. It's the first time around, we had like 185,000. And that, their interpretation was to get it in the hands of schools immediately, so they actually sent the money. This round, you've got to spend, and then you ask for claims.
It's probably comparable to the PPP loan that businesses can get. You have to prove that you've used it towards what it should be used, and then it's forgivable with us. So it's.
But this is you gotta actually present the bills, and then it's a reimbursed.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you don't use it, do you lose it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to take
Typical government program. Used to call it Christmas at the VA hospital in Iowa City.
Yeah.
The lab had 3 sets of the same equipment in storage because they had to spend the money on it.
Right.
They didn't get it the next time.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting that Waukee, I don't know whether you've ever seen that Waukee superintendent was put out because they didn't get as much as he thought they should, because it's based on the supplemental school.
It's based on Title I.
Oh,
Title I allocation.
They didn't qualify.
They didn't qualify because they're such a lean, prosperous
They got less
school
than-
district. They got less than the whole, yeah.
And Des Moines getting $41 million. I don't know if you see that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay. So.
Mr. Gordon, are you online?
Must have forgot about us.
You got somebody designated for this.
I
I can do it.
John has.
Oh, you guys
Put it out
have
there.